And we're live. Let me grab this. Oh wow, it hasn't actually been that long since this last video. So let's just get right into it. Right now, the thing that's recording is a completely different phone than what I had last time. I used to have an S10e, and then approximately 2 or 3 weeks ago, I lost it. I lied, I didn't lose it. I meant to say I lost all of my data because the phone just stopped working all of a sudden. And like I had 3 months worth of data, whether it was like past clips, videos, pictures, recordings, like all of it just gone. And it was just so unfortunate because like I don't even know what the hell happened to the phone. It just like turned off and never turned back on ever again. And it was like one of those things that just like hit me from left field, and I was like, what the hell just happened? So basically like that happened like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I felt extremely upset by that because I was like, what the hell happened? How can I make sure this never happens? Because I had like a system to make sure that everything is being backed up regularly, but I guess the feedback loop in terms of getting it backed up, or the cycle, the iteration, it was just like too slow. And so I think I would back up my files like every 4 weeks. And unfortunately for me, I had gone 3 months without like backing up anything. And so that's why I lost everything from the last 3 months. Like I used to record like those like voice memo diaries. I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but like I've recorded like every month, like with consistency. I would record like just like an update, very similar to like this, but just audio only. It'd be much more personal, obviously. And I would just give like updates, like what happened that month, like what I thought about it. And all of that was gone. So basically that happened. I felt the need to just make sure that all of my folders and like all my computer was just completely backed up. I was like trying to look into like other solutions. I bought like a 2 terabyte hard drive, transferred all of my backed up files onto it, put it in another location to make sure that that's fine, and then also made sure that like all my photos were being uploaded to Google Photos. I have an Android, so this new phone's an S20 Plus, and so I was like iCloud would have been useful if I had an iPhone, but like I made sure that every single thing that I had this time was being uploaded on time. So, as you know, we're here in Toronto. Every single time that we're probably filming a video, you're probably gonna hear a police siren. Just gonna happen. We're in a population of like 2 million people in such a dense area, so someone's either getting shot, or someone needs to go to a hospital, or there's some accident. It's gonna happen. Okay. I actually don't have that much of an update video, so it's very concentrated on a few things, so let's just get right into those things. A few updates from last video. I talked about how I stopped trading. Have not traded ever since. I've just been super stoic in that sense of just like not really trying to do anything. And then I haven't finished problem centering my workspace because of how busy I was with my building, and that's the next subject, which is I had a very interesting next set of months after I filmed that last video. So the day I filmed that last video was July 16th, 2022, which was the day after I basically had my 4 years of time tracking. And that's like when I just really went all into this like whole president role that I had. And I said that until I was on the board for like 2.5 years, since now like 2 years before then. I should say that better. I've been on the board from now for 2.5 years, but at that time of filming, it was 2 years about them. And I said about like 500 hours of it was spent being like just doing president work. Now the craziest thing is it's only been 1.5 months, only 1.5 months after that, I spent another 300 hours basically 7 months worth of work condensed into like 1.5 months. I should say like 5 months worth of work condensed into 1.5 months, because of just like the high amount of just like output that I was putting. And I got to a point where I just like was told by the board, like, yo, chill, you gotta chill out. Like, this is, you guys are working too hard. And so I sort of transitioned out of that after that point. I realized that there's certain things that I can't implement if I don't have somebody else that sees the same vision as I do. And serendipitously, at that exact same point, my friend Dalle, he approached me with like this like idea that he had, and we like just started a company together, and just like that. And that company is called Micropay. So what this company does is that it solves the following problem. It solves the current issue that people have paying for subscriptions or bulk purchasing credits on SaaS products, and they don't fully take advantage of those subscriptions or those bulk credits that they bought. And what we do is that we allow them to never spend more than what they use. And we also, on top of that, make it anonymous, so you don't have to even sign up, you don't have to even log in. You could just spend whatever you need to use, and that's it. Super frictionless, very, very low barrier of entry. And it also preserves privacy. And so this concept of implementing that was just so exciting, because it was only possible within the last like 1 to 2 years, because of just the development of the Lightning Network, which allows for small, instant, feeless microtransactions at scale. And so the fact that like Dalle, all credits to him, was working on the Lightning Network and just getting familiar with it, he had exposed me to this whole idea. And we wanted to, our first product was basically trying to generate some images on Dalle 2, which, if anyone doesn't know, is OpenAI's text-to-image generator. It's like a pre-trained model that has been trained over, I believe, the entire internet for all of its pictures. And it's able to basically create any picture that you want it to based off of a prompt. And I can probably give like some examples of that. I was working on basically creating with Dalle this micropaymentized version of Dalle 2, because the problem is that OpenAI, if you ever go on their website, you obviously get a few free credits in the beginning, but then the problem is after you actually decide to pay, you can't pay for one image generation at a time. You have to pay like $15 for like 115 credits, and that's like ridiculous. Like, no one's gonna pay 115, or not no one. It's less useful for someone to pay that much if they're only going to use like 20 or 30 or 40 credits, or if they don't know how many credits they're going to use. And so that is where we had this idea of like, wait, what if we create this solution to that, where people just only had to only buy 1 credit at a time? And so we did that, and we released it. Dalle tweeted out saying that he created a Dalle 2 image generator called Describe.photo in the beginning, and it was very, very successful. Like, it got shared, cross-posted along many different platforms in the Lightning Network community. Most of like the Lightning Network enthusiasts, or the people that actually had nodes, Lightning nodes, would use it, because that's the only way in which you're able to use it. It was so crazy, because the barrier of entry was so high just in general, because you have to have a Lightning node, and to understand how to even have that, given the current tech that we had like 1 or 2 months ago, assuming that no one knows about like Phoenix Wallet or any of that, it would be very, very hard to do that, even given the fact that you had crypto, even if you had Bitcoin as well. Like, converting crypto to like Lightning, or converting Bitcoin to Lightning, is not super obvious given the tools that we have. And so the fact that 1,000 people came on to our website, and we had over 1,000 transactions, it was just like unbelievable. The craziest thing also is that there was like this one particular individual who loved the product so much. We even talked to him after it. He like gave us a like 0.15 Bitcoin, which as of today is $3,000. And like that was just like the signal that like we're doing something right here of trying to micropaymentize things and release it out to people for them to use, because it obviously provided value. Hopefully I'll give a demo right here of how our version works. So take a look at this. Yeah, so at the moment, the one issue that we've experienced was that we had a high amount of traffic at the beginning, and it just like dipped down over time. And we are just constantly, just rapidly, just trying out different products and iterating on it a little bit and just releasing it out to our customers and just seeing what they think. And our goal is to literally just really from the grounds up, just make a bunch of different micropayment tools and see what really bites. So that if we really get that one thing, that's what we can really run away with. We've been thinking about like small business tools. We've been thinking about like marketplaces, but that's pretty much the idea. And more on that later. The craziest thing is that like so far, I've learned so much myself because if I think I might have mentioned this in previous videos, but if you know me, basically one of the big problems that I've had in the last like 6 to 12 months is the fact that I'm the type of person that will be motivated to do things if I know how to do it. The problem is that there's like a roadblock of you need to learn this skill in order to do something, and then it becomes like a little bit of a problem because there's a little bit of resistance in wanting to actually learn the skill. And I'll give you an example. Like if I know how to, for example, automate like my Google Home, whenever, for example, I get like an email, all of a sudden my Google Home tells me how to do it. If I know how to do that, I'll literally be able to automate it very, very quickly. And I'll be motivated to actually work on that like small project. That white space manager that I created of it, giving me a notification every 5 minutes if there's an empty space on my calendar, I knew how to do it. It was easy. But the problem is now, for example, if you tell me to create a web app, that's where it's like, damn, like there's so much to learn. You have to learn React, you have to learn like Node possibly, you have to learn like Next.js, Express. You have to like obviously like make sure that your JavaScript and your CSS and HTML is like perfect. Well, not perfect, but you know what I mean. Like it's good. You have to just make sure that like your idea of like client server architecture is good. So all of these like extra things was just like weighed down on me, and I was like, damn, like I don't even know if I want to learn all this just to like create like one thing. Until this moment where we actually created the startup, and just from like seeing things being built and features being built from like ground up and just being released, it was just really, really interesting to just learn everything. Because I think that now, given the tools that I have, I could just like, create so much more interesting stuff if this ever didn't work out. Like I'm left with like such insane skills. And so I learned JavaScript, I learned React, I am now familiar with Lightning and how that works. Still a lot to learn though for that. The interesting thing that we did is that we applied to Y Combinator basically 5 days after getting validation of the product. So we launched our like prototype in September 4th, and we submitted the Y Combinator application I think literally less than a week after that, because that's when the due date was. Now we got an interview, and we ended up getting a Y Combinator interview like just a few days ago, which I heard that was like extremely rare. And we did it. And it was the most insane interview. Like, they basically mentioned to us like we just want to have a conversation and all of that. For any of you that doesn't know, like Y Combinator is the biggest startup accelerator and the most renowned startup accelerator in the entire world. It's basically responsible for companies like Dropbox, Airbnb, Coinbase, like OpenSea, like huge billion dollar companies. And so it was just very interesting to see that DoorDash also, sorry, I just was like thinking about the examples. So it was just like really, really high pressure. It was like we really wanted to get in. They would also give us funding. And so we did the interview, and it was only 10 minutes. They said they just wanted to have a conversation. They just wanted to know how well we knew our users. And good for us, we actually ended up like talking to users beforehand too. And I joined the Zoom call with Dalle, and like the first question, there was like no introduction. The first question as soon as we join in is, so tell me about your business. I think it was more specifically like, so tell me what you two are working on. And it was crazy because like it just like puts you on the spot. And the craziest thing is that they would like interrupt you and really try to like make sure that like they're asking you like questions that like they basically tried to stump us. Basically, that's how like the feeling that I got. And I feel like we held our own. Like we were able to like answer all the questions, but I think there was like a confusion of people just in general, as well as Y Combinator, like interpreting us as like a payment gateway, when we're just like a Lightning Network merchant and trying to push the Lightning Network to like the world. And yeah, we ended up getting rejected, which sucked, obviously. But I feel like it was like a miscommunication. At the end of the day, like we learned so much from just that one 10-minute interview. I learned basically that the fact that there was miscommunication was because I wasn't very intently listening to the questions, and so, like both of us were just like thinking what the question was asking, but it actually wasn't asking that. And if we just like slowed down and not followed their pace and just like really thought through the questions thoughtfully, we'd be able to very easily point out the assumptions that were there and like effectively communicate what we were saying. And that was like the main lesson that I just learned in general, that like there's so much value in just really intently listening to the question, because it can just save you so much confusion later on down the line. And so the interview process was done. Y Combinator it was an L, and so we applied to we are planning on applying to 2 other accelerators. We're planning on applying to Wolf NYC, which is a Lightning Network only accelerator, which is very, very exciting if we get it, because they understand like the core problem we're trying to solve. We're not trying to convince people that are not even familiar with this space about like what we're doing, and so that's very exciting. And then the other one is Andreessen Horowitz's crypto Web3 accelerator, which is interesting. I'm sort of like off put by like the way in which they frame things, but let's see what happens. We might apply and just see what we get. But long story short, if I were to just summarize like my entire 2 months working, I've been working like nonstop. By the way, there's like all the nonstop work that I was doing for this building at Neil Isaac, it's just completely shifted over to micropay. And I learned so much in terms of just like how we should be presenting ourselves, how we should like basically this idea of like never being loyal to like half a product and a product that just half works, constantly iterating, and making sure that we are finding out our unknowns. Such as right now, like I don't even know like what our total addressable market is. And if we talk to any investor, that's most likely the top question on their mind. And that's like something that like one of my friends mentioned to me that really like impacted me, made me realize that like there's certain things about the business that I thought I knew that I didn't know at all. And there's a lot of unknowns that need to be figured out in order for this to be viable. And the other thing that we learned was that there's just so many tools to test, such as like there's so many future AI tools that we can create, a text to image, text to text like GPT-3, more on this later, text to audio, image to image, image to audio. Like there's so many different ways of making things with AI here, that if we could just brainstorm all the different things that could be created, we can just create like an MVP of that and just release a bunch of different things that we think will have product market fit. And that way we can just like fund ourselves and then spend the rest of our time in our 20s just like building cool shit and impacting the world and bringing on like a more democratic future. So that's one thing, future AI tools, micropaymentized. The other thing is, like I mentioned, focusing on like small business tools like Zapier, MailChimp, HostGator, focusing on businesses that their tiered pricing models of subscriptions doesn't really make sense, because at the end of the day, every extra increase in tier is just more API calls that you can give, and that's sort of like the very interesting nature behind these subscription models of Zapier and MailChimp, etc. That at the end of the day, they could just all be completely drawn down to just pay per use, and that can democratize everything. And if you think of this pay-as-you-go model, Amazon Web Services, AWS, really like made this clear as to how successful it could be. Obviously, they have a post-pay model, but they're like big enough to like be able to afford this. But just think about it, that you can, like, businesses could literally never pay more than what they use, which means if they have a bad month, they don't get dinged for it on a month-to-month basis. If, for example, their server wasn't full of traffic a certain month and they didn't have to like make a bunch of computations, they don't pay that much. And so that's what I found very, very interesting. And so this was one of those ideas that, like, if you bring it from Amazon and we apply that to Zapier or apply that to MailChimp, that could be very successful, given the fact that Zapier and MailChimp are already billion dollar businesses. We can help small businesses get off the ground if they're stuck on the free version and trying to get to the paid version. And then when I say small businesses, I mean like people that are like sole proprietorships, just like creative influencers, or people that are freelancers just trying to like get like a small business running. The other thing that's happened is just like my overall fascination with just the field. I genuinely believe that we're like in like a AI boom right now. There's like some ridiculous shit that's possible right now in AI. I talked about Dalle 2, I gave an example of that. But there's also some next shit that you could do with GPT-3, which was a technology that was released 2 years ago. And Dalle 2 was released just earlier this year, which is unbelievable if you think about it, because in my opinion, GPT-3 is even more impressive than Dalle 2 is. I'll give you some examples of GPT-3. You can, for example, write marketing copy. You can basically ask it for advice. You can ask it to write an essay for you on any topic. You can ask it to write you an implementation of a bit of like literally a business requirement in code. Like imagine you say, create a data set of OHLC candlesticks of like the price of Apple from 2020 to 2022. And it will literally be able to do that. It'll literally write down the entire code for how to fetch that data and all of that. You say create a Discord bot, it will literally tell you like exactly how to do that. And so if you also ask it, like if you pretend like you are somebody and you're interviewing it, you can literally assume, or it will literally assume whatever character you associate it to. So you could say like, I'm talking to like Elon Musk, or I'm talking to Jesus Christ, or I'm gonna be talking to Kim Jong-un. And it will literally be able to assume that character, and you literally can have like an interview with them. The GPT-3 is essentially just text completion. So it's just seeing your prompt, seeing like your like the what's it called? The crumbs, the breadcrumbs that you're putting down, and trying to complete it. And so that's what's really, really interesting about GPT-3. There's so many more examples. But there's been like billion dollar companies or future billion dollar companies that have come out of GPT-3, which is unbelievable. The other thing that's just like blown my mind is this concept of Dreambooth, which is another AI technology. There's this thing that's happened recently in the last 2 weeks or so of something called profile pictures being generated by AI. Like there's two main ones that I know about called Profile Picture AI and Avatar AI.me. One of them is by Levels.io, which is like someone that just like creates a bunch of products all the time. And you can literally input a series of images, only like 20 of them, and it's built on Stable Diffusion, such that it's able to see the small training data of images that you've given it, and able to create any context for yourself for that common image that you submitted. So it could be like a picture of a human being. And I'll give you an example. Like I submitted some example images, and these are the results. And it's like unbelievable, like how crazy some of these results are. You can do that with anything. And there's like these platforms that are able to be created. I shouldn't say platforms, I should say these products that are able to be created based off of like a free technology. And people are literally making like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars from it. And I find that very exciting. Like even I paid for both of those services that I just talked about. And so when I mentioned like how we were gonna think about like all the future AI tools and try to figure out like what examples are possible, that's what I was thinking about. Like thinking of like actual use cases, things that can get product market fit, things that just click. Yeah, there's still so much like yet to come, like text to video. Like just imagine saying like, play me a movie of a guy that is an orphan that lives with his parents, is approached by someone and tells them that they're a wizard, and they go to a school of witchcraft and wizardry, and like literally you'll be able to see a variation of Harry Potter, but like the AI doesn't know anything about that, and so it will do it in a very unique way. And the craziest thing about everything I've just mentioned, whether it's GPT-3, whether it's Dalle 2, whether it's Dreambooth, every single one of these pre-trained models can give you infinite iterations. Infinite, meaning that it will never repeat the same thing like twice. And I shouldn't say never, but like it will basically be different every time to the point where it's unrecognizable to some degree. And that is where like there's so much power. If I had like GPT-3 when I was a kid, bro, I would literally like just whiz by school. Like it would be so easy to solve school problems. Like I literally took like a textbook question from a physics textbook, put it in GPT-3, and it was able to solve it. Which is like next level. Like I told my investment banking friend to like put in what he does and like ask GPT-3 to do it. Like create like an LBO model of this company, and it was able to like literally do it. And so it's just very, very interesting. Like the boom that we're in, and I think it's happening so fast. There's so many other technologies too that I'm excited for. Like the Quest Pro was released recently, and like the metaverse is really just taking off on its own. The AI is just taking off on its own. There's just so much, and like crypto's taking off on its own. There's just so much that's happening right now. It's just so exciting, and our future plans is just to like take advantage of all this and just keep iterating. And try to get to a point where we have product market fit and just get plugged in. That's the goal. If you don't know what I mean by plugged in, I'm basically talking about being plugged into the energy network of the world, where you have like your let's say like you have like a cord, right? And that cord gives you energy. And in this case, I'm thinking of money. You plug it into like the grid of just like infinite electricity, and it's like a fire hose of money that can come at you by doing that. I'll give you an example of it actually. Check out this video.
Like,
And so that's what I'm up to at the moment. My focus is 100% on this company now. Like there's literally nothing else that interests me to do at the moment other than work on this company and just iterate the shit out of it. I just want to learn so much about just like how to build businesses and just how to fundraise and how to just like understand everything. Like it's so exciting. I'm in the phase where like one of the things I probably should mention here is that I've had like moments in my life where I shouldn't even say in my life. I've had moments this year where I've thought about like, what is it that I even want to do? And it's crazy because I would always start off with the micro and I'd write down everything I want to do. And then I would like categorize it. And I did this on like 2 or 3 individual occasions, and it would always come back down to the same thing. Same like 3 to 4 categories. And I noticed that it was these 4 things. I want to attain a supreme state of self-awareness. I want to be able to have access to whatever it is that I want. I want to be able to engage only with people that I consider like-minded. And finally, I want to be able to display, show to the world how valuable I can be and how much impact I can really have. I can like go down some of these. So the first one, the supreme state of self-awareness, is just my overall thesis. I don't even know if I've ever mentioned this because it's been, actually I might have mentioned this. Yeah, I might have mentioned this. It's just this concept of looking for clarity. There's a whole bunch of flawed assumptions that we have in our lives. And my assumption here is that, and I don't think this is a flawed one, my assumption is all of your suffering comes from flawed assumptions and a lack of clarity. And so what the hell are we doing anything else other than that? And so I've gone to a point where I feel like I've identified all the things that I don't have full clarity on. And now I'm just gonna have to allow life experience to just like hit me, because I'm doing whatever I want already anyways. So there's I can't go any faster than what I'm going right now. And so that's basically like attaining supreme self-awareness. That's like the first goal. That's just gonna happen on its own. so long as I continue to pay attention to like my life experiences and allow for whatever inspiration that comes to me to deal with it at that point. The next one is to have access to whatever I want. And this is primarily just not feeling restricted. Now, the interesting thing about me is the fact that I don't feel like I need to have too many things. It's just like very small things that that seem to be bothersome. So, for example, like if I were to, for example, fly to New York right now and go chill with my friend, the one that I helped move his SF apartment out, there's like this feeling of, there's this additional, although like imagine I actually wanted to go to New York, there's this additional feeling of like spending money on the ticket, spending money on like a hotel if I need to, spending money on like just whatever. And I want to get to a point where I just don't want to worry about that. And there's a certain level to it, right? Like it's not like I'm gonna, like people mention that there's gonna be lifestyle inflation and like the goalposts will always move, but I don't actually think that this will apply to me that severely. Like obviously I believe that there will be lifestyle inflation, but I just want like the basic necessities. Like I want to be able to pay for things and not need to worry about like how much I'm paying for them. And I won't be like going out that much, right? I want to be able to go anywhere without worrying about it. And I also want to be able to like have a car and not need to worry about like its cost. And so like that's an example of what I'm talking about. And same thing like rent, like not needing to worry about like rent if I would actually live in Toronto. Like that's the minimum. Like that's all I need. And I think that's about like having an income of like $80,000. And I think that's like statistically how much you need to have before nothing else matters. Or like your level of happiness just like doesn't really matter after that. That's the goal for accessing whatever you want. That's what I mean. Having access. Having access could also lead to potentially like being like getting things that other people can't because I just know how to get them myself. Like I just have that understanding, I have that clarity. The third thing is engaging with only people that I think are like-minded. And this is something I have not talked about. I've just had this, like these last few months, I felt a little bit more pessimistic just towards society. This is, okay, so these last 2 months are just gonna be like extremely condescending and egoing, okay? So I'm just gonna like let it out there and like if you don't like being, if you don't like hearing like people sound very narcissistic, then just like, video is pretty much over at that point. So just, this is me just being completely just true to myself, exactly how I think about things. So I've just felt extremely disappointed by the world. Every single relationship that I feel like I have, I feel like the person that I talk to, or at least 99% of them, they're just not present. They don't actually pay attention. And it doesn't seem like they want to pay attention. They're sort of living their life on autopilot. And by living life on autopilot, you by definition are not paying attention. And if you're by definition not paying attention, you're not going to be able to empathize with what I'm doing at all, because you're not paying attention. Like empathy is just simply just the desire to want to understand somebody, and that will lead to you having empathy, because you now are paying attention to their shoes and you're putting yourself in their shoes. And a lot of people literally can't even put themselves in other people's shoes, like truly can't put themselves in other people's shoes. They could only put themselves in they could only take their situation and relate it to their own situation. But they can't, for example, forge a reality and play a story in their head and try to do it to the same degree in which that person is, and try to put them in those shoes. That's something that true empathy is about. And what I realized is that most people just don't pay attention. The other thing I noticed is that most people just don't think from first principles. And the reason why this is a big problem for me is the fact that the opposite of first principles thinking, and this might be an assumption, but this has just been the conclusion, if I were to just from my unconscious reasoning here, and I actually will concede that this might not be like accurate, but what I've been convinced of is that the opposite of first principles is just copying. And if you copy, you're not thinking for yourself. And if you copy, all you're doing is just doing you're doing very, very naive pattern recognition. So imagine, for example, like somebody's sad, right? Or somebody's happy. You will literally, just by seeing somebody in that state, you will naively think that because I've seen other people in that state, I will like go and like try to like make sure that like they're feeling okay and all of that. And that's fine. The problem is when you over assume what that person's feeling, because maybe someone could just have their head down and not really be feeling anything. And the craziest part is the lack of respect for that other person. And if they tell you, for example, that they're fine and you don't believe they're fine, assuming that they've had a good track record of telling you the truth, because some people obviously won't tell the truth, but assuming that they have a good track record of telling you the truth, the fact that you wouldn't believe them is a problem. And that all stems from a lack of paying attention and a lack of first principles thinking and thinking for yourself. Because if you're just copying, like, you're just basically just doing what someone else is doing and you're not being yourself. Exactly, that's another thing. Copying leads to insincerity. And I mentioned in the last video that I'm extremely just reactive. I get triggered by insincerity. And I just don't like it for some reason or another. That's my unconscious reasoning. And I recognize that there could be a level of compassion for this, but me doing what I want here, or me feeling how I feel, I have an extreme reaction to it, to insincerity. And so when I see people that copy, there's a high chance that they're also insincere, because you cannot ever be yourself by copying others. And so, okay, this is a long-winded way of saying this. People that don't think first principles and copy, and people that don't pay enough attention, it's very related. But those two things sums up 99% of the population. Sums up most of the people I've ever met. And so, I, by contrast, am saying that I am not those things. And I do pay attention, and I do think from first principles. And so the goal of trying to find people that are like-minded is trying to find people that think from first principles and that pay attention. I genuinely don't think I've ever met a single person that's done this to the same level that I have, and has desire to understand and get clarity on their life the same level that I have. And that has led me to just want to search for those people and only interact with those people. Because if I ever found those people, I genuinely, if I were to just be honest, wouldn't see any use in talking to any person that I'm talking to right now. And that's just like the reality of how I see it. But it's not like I have like some bitterness towards the people that I already am already am around. I've accepted that people are in a situation where they don't think first principles and they don't think for themselves, and that's why, for example, I don't have much desire, or I don't get that excited to chill with many people, because it's more so me just being there for them than the opposite. I don't really get much excitement out of just chilling, because there's more exciting things. If I were imagine I had another let's say conscious, let's call paying attention and thinking first principles, let's just call that one word, let's call it being conscious. So imagine I had a few other conscious friends, I would have a lot more fun with them than I would presume than if it wasn't like that. I sense that most people have a reaction of well, why the hell would you why are you thinking of your friends as things that you, as a tool, as a tool to your happiness? And I find that very naive for someone to ask that question, because that just means that they don't understand the intrinsic meaning that they get from being with friends. At the end of the day, it's all about yourself, and you're getting satisfied and and spiritually filled from the people you're around. All I'm saying is that I just don't get that. If you get it, that's fine, but I don't. And that's why I spend a lot of my time in solitude. So that's the third goal. To spend time around conscious people, which just basically means like-minded, which basically just means first principles and paying attention. And putting yourself in other people's shoes, like purely. And then the last thing, and this one's also the same thing, it's along the same energy of narcissism here, which is that to prove to the world how valuable I can be. And it's sort of really just like, I don't know what the word is, but it sort of really like carries over from the last thing that I just said, which is that if there's no one else that's like me that I've met, then just imagine how someone like myself could have an impact on whatever it is that I do if I brought this first principles, pure first principles, as well as paying attention side of things, this conscious side of things to it. I've seen in my life that anything that I've paid attention to, and I've dedicated a lot of my energy towards, I've literally been able to become the best at it. And given the fact that I have no self-conflict, it's very, very difficult for me to burn out because I always am doing what I want to be doing. And I don't have this feeling of needing to be disciplined, because without, I can do the things that are considered productive without discipline. And so that allows me to work like pretty much infinitely. And I don't say this insincerely. I sincerely mean this, and I would love to be proven wrong. There is a little bit of like, I have been humbled a lot of times here, and I don't want to say anything that I don't, and I'm not 100% sure of. But there obviously is self-conflict, but there isn't as much self-conflict is what I'm trying to say. And so just imagine like what I could do in the world if everything that I've thought about is purely founded from first principles, and I'm actually able to understand things from by putting myself in other people's shoes, and by paying close attention, and by recognizing patterns that people don't recognize, by being able to consistently be able to work. Just imagine the shit I can do. And you'll be able to see this like with micropay. Like I personally think that whether it's micropay or whether it's whatever other company, like whatever it is that I'm dedicating my energy towards, it will be magnificent. All right, narcissism is over. That's it. That's what's in line, that's in the future right now. Those 4 things that I want to solve at the moment. And with that, that's pretty much it. I'll see you next time.